Hi everyone, this is J. Hope Suez from Hope Boulevard. Thanks for joining me again as I continue to read my book, Midlife Joyride, Loving the Single Lane. We have made it to Chapter 5. Chapter 4 was all about your online dating profile and how to set it up and what to say, what not to say, and how to interpret someone else's, and how to do a great first message and what to read into someone else's messages. So now we've come to the point where actually getting ready to meet someone in person. So chapter 5 is called The Relearner's Permit, the First Date. And the quote is from Joey Adams, and it says, "Never let a fool kiss you or a kiss fool you." Has anybody been guilty of that? Me. Okay. So, regardless of age, we all feel excitement and a little nervous about a first date. This is your moment to shine and make a good impression. You are also very hopeful your date will make a good impression. There are many dynamics going on, and it is best not to get too wrapped up in the details. Just relax and be yourself. The first date with someone you've met through a traditional channel is slightly different than the one which you met online. You've already been introduced to them, know what they look like, if you're attracted to them, and have a baseline for their personality. The nerves and planning are the same, but there's an element of safety, and much of the surprise has been decreased. As comfortable as it is to sit all cozy at your home in your pajamas chatting with someone online, you will never know if there's any real potential until you meet face to face, which should never happen in your home or in your pajamas. If you have connected with someone and sent a few emails, the anticipation builds towards meeting them in person. Some people want to go straight from the email to a meeting at Starbucks, and while I understand this is tempting, I recommend talking on the phone at least once before agreeing to meet. There is something about having an actual conversation with the person that reveals much more than a written email or text. I have decided against meeting men after talking with them on the phone based on their communication skills, whether it was a negative voice inflection, excessive bad language, or any number of things that I can pick up on as clues to their compatibility with me. I also look for their willingness to talk on the phone. I have had instances where a guy would text or email but never call me or answer it if I called him. This behavior was extremely suspect, and I quickly moved on. Obviously, everyone has times during the day when availability is impossible, but repeated excuses for why someone can't talk or doesn't hear the phone is a red flag. There is usually something else going on in their lives that would not appreciate you being there too. So who does the asking nowadays? We all grew up in a time where the guy asked the girl out, but as Bob Dylan sang, times they are changing. For me personally, I do prefer the guy to ask. However, I have been known to make the suggestion from time to time if I felt there was a mutual interest and he was a little timid. As we get older, we've had to deal with heartache and even loss. It takes courage to put it out there and start again. Rejection, no matter what stage in life, is difficult. I do not have an issue with who asks as long as someone is asking and you are not spending countless days just chatting. If you do ask, do it only once. If you introduce the idea of getting together and they turn you down, let it go. You should not ask why, nor react in a negative fashion. Just simply say, "Okay, I understand. If you change your mind, let me know." The offer stands. If it doesn't turn into a big deal, they are more likely to re-engage with you if they change their mind. As a side note, please know there are some people online who have no real intentions of meeting. They use the dating site to fill up their lonely nights with chatting and idle conversation with no real goal to meet anybody in person. These individuals may be emotionally scarred or even already in relationships and are only playing on the side. I would not invest too much of your time with anyone who does not want to meet face to face within a week or two after the first email. Now, let's get to the good stuff. You have decided that this person on the other side of the screen is someone you want to meet in person. The average time from the first email to the first date is about 1 or 2 weeks. That's very exciting and requires a little thought and planning. The meet and greet. Is there such thing as a half date? If, after all the preliminary checks and balances, you are still uncomfortable with the time and or money investment in a full-blown date, you can opt for the meet and greet. This is like a drive-through of dating. There are some who are opposed to the meet and greet. They view it as a cheap way to kill time and used primarily by those with no real interest in pursuing a relationship. I understand the hesitation, especially in women who may want the guy to step up and go all in for the first meeting. But I personally don't have any issues with this condensed dating, as there's still a whole lot of things unknown about this new person. It is not disrespectful to protect yourself and your valuable time by starting out short and sweet. A meet and greet is designed to limit your initial exposure and usually takes the form of a cup of coffee or a very unassuming lunch. I have done both. A lunch works well for me because I get an hour. What can go wrong in an hour, right? I once knocked over a full glass of sweet tea in a guy's lap. He went to the bathroom to clean up and never came back. That's a true story. The primary objective of the meet and greet is to make sure they are a true representation of their online presence and that you feel comfortable being around them. I am not an advocate of giving away too much personal information at this level. Home address, work address, family information, all of this can come later if there's a connection. This time should be spent talking about common interests, values, and goals. At the end of the lunch or coffee, if you do not feel like taking it any further, you can be polite, say your goodbyes, and be on your way. If it goes very well and the excitement continues to build, you can flirt a little, plan your next meeting, and then be on your way to an actual first date. When you're ready to go, where do you go? The possibilities are endless when it comes to locations for the first date. The key is to be open to the suggestions of the other person and use some common interests you've already discovered. It can be quiet and romantic, which is conducive to talking and listening if your goal is to gather more information. A restaurant with outdoor seating if the weather is good, or one with a cozy corner booth and fireplace if chilly outside. You could go to a museum, an exhibit, or even a movie. I have mixed feelings about a movie. Statistically, more people respond favorably to a movie as a first date than any other suggestion. I'm not sure if that's because it limits the amount of conversation that must take place, or if people just really enjoy a good movie. A movie definitely inhibits talking and finding out more about the other person, but there is something a little romantic about sitting close in the dark while leaning in to whisper about the film. I have had movie dates where we met, went inside, watched the movie, and parted ways with probably less than 100 words spoken total. I have also had those where we met, watched the movie, and then went somewhere to grab a bite to eat and talk about it. It opened up an obvious topic of conversation that branched off into other things. This can also be a telltale sign of common ground. Agreeing on a movie can be quite challenging at times. The sci-fi versus the chick flick, the horror versus the animated, the action versus the documentary. If a couple finds the right movie fit right away, that's a great time. You can also get loud and crowded if you just want to let loose and have fun, such as an outdoor festival where you can walk around checking out the artisan vendors and sample different foods. You can go listen to a band, go out dancing, or even try karaoke. Any of these options will highlight the similarities or differences in artistic, taste, food, music, eating styles, and activity levels. You can take in a local sporting event. If you'd rather gauge their spontaneity and skill set, should suggest a round of miniature golf, tennis, hiking, bowling, or go shoot a game of pool. Wherever you pick, make sure it's a public place and you arrive separately. I am still not in favor of giving out your home addresses or starting or ending from there. I know, I'm very cautious. No matter how sweetly they talk on the phone or how appealing a home-cooked dinner with Netflix in front of the big screen television sounds, this should never be the first date. There is plenty of time for that later if it goes well. While this is important for your safety, also understand until you know that this person will not park in front of your driveway with headlights on or a spotlight pointed into your living room while playing a love song at full volume at 1 a.m., do not let them know where you live. In addition to picking a public space, pick a place activity within a reasonable budget. From a recent survey, 80% of men questioned still pick up the check. Hooray for you guys! But both should be prepared to pay their own way. Okay, I know that's controversial too. Even though some may disagree with me, I love the idea of a man taking me out. It's romantic, sweet, and flows with the traditional dating roles. However, if we've never met before and he is watching the clock until it's time to go, I would never want him to feel obligated to pay my way. I also recommend having this conversation before the date so there are no awkward moments when the check arrives. Now, on a side note from that, which is not in the book, obviously, if I've done the meet and greet, and usually on the meet and greet, I will always offer or already just have bought whatever it is that if it's a cup of coffee or whatever, or I'll offer or I will pay for my own lunch. The meet and greet, I almost always at least offer to pay for mine for the same reason. They may not like me. It may not go well. I don't want to, whatever. If we've gone through the meet and greet and we're moved on to the first date, typically I do expect the guy to pay for it. I always come prepared to be able to in case for some reason they don't. But anyway, back to the book. I had one guy get very insulted when I offered to pay, assuming I was attacking his ability to provide. I had this talk with another guy when the check came, and at first he said no. However, after my explanation, he said, well then, why don't you pay for this and I'll pay for the next one? I figured I had backed myself into a corner because I'm the one who brought it up, so I paid for all of it. I never heard from him again. I also recently went out with someone and didn't offer to pay my portion, and afterward he spent 30 minutes complaining about how much it cost. The rules are shifting a bit on this topic, and honestly, I'm not convinced I have the right answer. Do what feels right to you. I still choose most of the time to offer or at least have the funds available to do so. Girls, if you offer and he declines and wants to pick up the check, be gracious and grateful. Don't fight with him about it. Just say thank you. Do not insist or create conflict. Guys, if a woman does bring this up, please don't be offended. We are not being ultra-liberal or unappreciative of your generosity. It is simply a nice and fair gesture on our part. If the wheels keep rolling, there will be plenty of opportunity for both of you to contribute. Have I seen you before? What if they don't look like their pictures? We talked about this in the last chapter about only using recent photos, but not everyone you meet will do that. About 40% of women and 20% of men show up for their first dates not looking like expected. The reason is obvious. They are afraid you will not go out with them. This reasoning is flawed because when you get right down to it, it's lying. We all want to believe that our inner beauty and truly engaging personality is enough. And it certainly could be, but if you're not honest with this most basic and obvious information, a negative tone is set right away. I have a simple way to alleviate this. Unless I can tell somehow from a profile picture about how old it is, I always ask for a new selfie to use as their contact picture on my phone. I am sure most guys know why I'm doing it, but if they have nothing to hide, they don't mind doing it. I know I don't mind when they ask it of me. Typically, women are a little more forgiving in this area, but not by much, at least not with me. Several years ago, here's my story. I agreed to meet a guy after work at a local Mexican restaurant. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I started feeling very sick, and I was in a quandary about what to do. I didn't want to cancel for fear he would believe I was bailing on him and not give me another chance. I was very interested after talking to him, and he was quite attractive. I decided that I would go meet him. Afterwards, he would obviously tell I was in no condition to eat, and we could reschedule. I got to the restaurant first, sat at one of those high-top tables. I couldn't even think about ordering anything, not even water. I was sitting there in this nauseous haze when this older guy walked up to me and started talking. My immediate reaction was to be concerned that my date would walk in, see me talking to another guy, and leave. Plus, I was not in the mood for small talk. Just as I was getting ready to send him on his way, he said something that identified him as my date. This guy was a good 10 years older and 25 pounds heavier. I couldn't believe how much different he looked, or why he thought it would just be okay. It was one of those times I was glad to be that sick so I could use it for my quick getaway. There aren't too many options if this happens to you, and it will eventually happen. Go with the flow and be a good sport, knowing that these individuals with have a desire for companionship just like you, even if they took the risk by not being truthful about their appearance. Do you hear that? Always have an exit strategy. This has been joked about for so long and even portrayed on television and in the movies. Most people are expecting their dates to have an emergency plan to leave if things don't go well. At our age, I think, for the most part, we should be able to handle a disappointing date and stick it out. However, if you do feel a creepy vibe or something is just not sitting right with you, by all means, it's okay to excuse yourself and simply go home. I used to leave the information of my date and the place we were meeting with a friend, but I've since stopped doing that. I'm not opposed to doing it, and if it makes you feel better, that's fine. This is another reason I don't give out too much personal information until after that first date is proven to be successful. Speaking of phoning a friend, the number one turnoff during a first date is being on the phone. Do not, and I repeat, do not text, scroll social media, or play words with friends on a date. Seriously, I had to say that. We are world obsessed with our phones, and some even experience severe anxiety if they don't have it on them at all times. Technology can be a great tool, but it can also be a great hindrance to your love life. If you still have a child at home who may need to get in touch with you, it's certainly okay to have the phone available and tell your date the circumstances. Just be mindful of the time spent if your attention is divided. First date fashion. What not to wear. We already ruled out pajamas. I will limit my advice on this subject because this is not my strong point. I have been known to pull out almost everything in my closet, try it on, toss, and repeat, only to end up with the first outfit I picked. Has anybody else done that? Raise your hands. I know you're out there. The activity, location, and weather all have much to play in your decisions. Here's just a few quick hints. Ladies, I know you want to put your best foot forward, but be careful what you put on your foot. If you're not used to high heels, don't experiment today. If you're going walking or planning any type of activity, I don't care how cute they are, do not wear shoes that will leave you miserable in 30 minutes. Dress for the occasion and the activity. I suggest something neat, simple, and classic, but not too revealing or extravagant. Be true to yourself and your style, and do not try to present anything you're not. However, I am not a fan of the attitude, they should accept me how I am, so I'm not trying to impress. When you put effort into your appearance, it shows others you value them and how they see you. Beauty is subjective and much more than an outer layer of clothing, but we all should strive to look our best when we're out with our date or a partner. Men, don't hate me for saying this, but you have a much easier job in this department. You have no idea. But you still have to try here too. The woman you're about to go out with has put time and thought into how she is presenting herself, so please do the same. Get a haircut if it's been a while. Trim the beard. Splash on some cologne. Dress comfortably, but not the holy jeans with the Led Zeppelin t-shirt or the Star Wars shirt. Make her proud to be seen with you. I don't have a problem with Star Wars. I'm just saying. Okay? I mean, you know. If you're meeting at a designated place, I do not have any hard rules for the first encounter. Guys, it is not necessary to bring us flowers, as we probably will not have any way to put them in water or carry them around. However, most of us still love to have the door open for us, and please let us order our food if we're eating out. I've noticed a trend lately where this is a small piece of respect is starting to fade. So that's the first half of the chapter. I'm actually going to stop here. The next part is the conversation. And So I'm going to divide this chapter in half. We're going to pick back up in the next video. So I hope to see you in just a few minutes. Thanks.